Lee Finnegan sat alone in her darkly lit apartment, the faint hum of the city outside hardly breaking through the thick silence that engulfed her. Her fingers trembled as she held her phone. The screen lit up with the number she had typed but not yet dialed. Regret gnawed at her, a constant aching that had settled deep in her chest ever since she recognized the enormity of what she had discovered. Luna, her once trusted friend, had spun such a complex web of deception that Lee couldn't believe she'd been unaware of it for so long. The truth had slowly unraveled at first, like a loose thread pulled from a sweater, but it was now a gaping hole, disclosing secrets that could not be overlooked. She needed to act. She had to contact the cops. The expensive restaurant Il Giardino, where Luna was most likely to dine tonight, would serve as the setting for her reckoning. The decision weighed deeply on Lee. She focused on the phone, her thumb hovering over the call button. Memories of Luna flooded her mind. Nights spent laughing over glasses of wine, shared secrets, and the relationship they had formed over the years of friendship. However, those recollections were now tainted by the terrible awareness that Luna had been manipulating others around her. The proof was clear. Documents Lee had discovered, cryptic signals and whispered discussions she had overheard at the wrong time. Luna was not who she appeared, and the threat she posed was no longer a suspicion but a reality. Lee's flat was small and chaotic, with mismatched furniture and shelves crammed with medical texts. As a doctor, she was used to making life or death decisions, but this was unique. This was not a patient on a surgical table. It was personal. Her attention shifted to a framed photo on the coffee table, showing her and Luna at a charity banquet last year, both smiling and arms around each other. The image seemed like a falsehood now, a painful reminder of the trust she had lost. She put down the phone for a minute, placing her fingers to her eyes as if to shut out the truth. The truth was revealed 2 weeks ago, during a routine visit to Luna's office at Forrester Creations, where she worked as a junior designer. Lee had came by to return a scarf Luna had left at her house, but Luna was not present. Instead, Lee discovered a mound of documents on her desk, carelessly put there. Curiosity had gotten the best of her, and she looked at them, expecting nothing but sketches or fabric orders. Instead, she discovered a collection of financial records, bank statements, and emails that pointed to something far more nefarious. Names she recognized, well-known figures in the fashion industry, were linked to transactions that made no sense. Large sums of money were being transferred, accounts were being drained, and references to product that did not correspond to anything Forrester Creations was known for. First, Lee assumed it was an error. Perhaps Luna was being framed, or she had wandered into something she didn't comprehend. However, when she looked deeper, piecing together bits of evidence, the image grew clearer. Luna was involved in a major illicit activity. The communications addressed shipments, using coded terminology to describe deliveries that were not garments or fabrics. Lee's medical background raised an unsettling suspicion. Drugs. Not the recreational kind, but something structured that may endanger lives. The understanding hit her like a punch in the stomach. She confronted Luna the next day, hoping for an explanation that would make everything go away. They met in a small coffee shop on the outskirts of town, away from the glamour of Los Angeles's fashion sector. Luna had been her usual charming self at first, dismissing Lee's questions with a wave of her hand. "You're reading too much into it, Lee," she responded with a bright grin but keen gaze. "It's just business. You would not understand." But Lee persisted, her voice low but firm, quoting precise details from the documents. Luna's demeanor changed, her smile disappearing and replaced by a cold, calculating glare. For the first time, Lee felt a tinge of terror. "You need to drop this," Luna replied, barely above a whisper. "You don't know what you're getting into." The warning hung in the air, heavy with implicit threats. Lee exited the coffee shop shaken, her mind racing. She wanted to believe Luna was simply caught up in something beyond her control, but the evidence didn't support that theory. Luna wasn't the victim. She was too far in, too confident, and too calculating. For days, Lee debated what to do. She couldn't ignore what she knew, but turning Luna in felt like a betrayal. Not only of their friendship, but of their life together. Luna had been there for her during some of her darkest times, such as when Lee's father died and she had no one else to turn to. But the more Lee thought about it, the more she realized that Luna's kindness had always been conditional. There was always a motive, a subtle manipulation that Lee was too innocent to recognize. The breaking point occurred last night. Lee was at Il Giardino for a work dinner, sitting at a table toward the back. The restaurant was a favorite among LA's elite, thanks to its verdant outdoor patio, glittering string lights, and menu that combined Italian classics with California flair. She hadn't expected to see Luna there, yet there she was, sitting at a corner table with two men she didn't recognize. They were older, wearing expensive clothes, and their looks were stern and unforgiving. Luna was energetic, moving as she spoke, and her laughter echoed across the room. But there was something strange about the scene, the way the men leaned in, their eyes scouring the room like predators. Lee remained out of sight, her heart hammering as she watched. One of the men passed a little gift over the table to Luna, who quickly placed it into her purse. The exchange was so seamless and practiced that Lee knew it was not the first time. She fled the restaurant before Luna could sight her, her mind set. She couldn't be silent any longer. Whatever Luna was involved in, it was risky and people could be injured. As she sat in her apartment, the weight of her decision weighed heavily on her. Calling the cops wasn't only about justice. It was about protecting others from whatever Luna had planned. But it also spelled the end of their friendship and Lee's life as she knew it. She took up the phone again, her resolve strengthened. She dialed the Los Angeles Police Department's number and hit call. The line rang twice before a dispatcher picked up. LAPD, how can I assist you? The voice was calm and professional, yet it struck a shock through Lee. This was real. There was no turning back. I need to report a crime, Lee replied, her voice more stable than she imagined. She introduced herself and recounted in halting terms what she had uncovered about Luna. The dispatcher listened patiently, inquiring about the documents, the individuals at Il Giardino, and Luna's actions. Lee revealed the items she had seen, the coded communications, and the financial records that indicated something illicit. She didn't have all of the pieces, but she knew Luna had to be stopped. Do you know where the suspect is now? The dispatcher inquired. Lee hesitated. She had heard Luna indicate earlier that day that she would be back at Il Giardino tonight, most likely to see additional business associates. It had been a habit for her to do her business over informal dinners at Il Giardino. She's probably at Il Giardino, Lee explained. The restaurant at La Cienega. She's there most nights. The operator thanked her and said officers will be dispatched to investigate. Lee hung up with her hands shaking. She felt an odd combination of relief and terror. She had done the correct thing, but at what cost? Luna would recognize herself. There was no way to hide her involvement, especially since the police were certain to question her about the tip. She envisioned Luna's expression when the officers approached her table, shock becoming to rage as she understood who had betrayed her. Lee stood and walked the room, her thoughts racing with possibilities. What if Luna gets away? What if the cops did not locate sufficient evidence? Or worse, what if Luna pursued her? The notion sent shivers down her spine. She had noticed Luna's cold, calculating expression at the coffee shop, which suggested she was capable of anything. Lee secured her apartment door and checked the windows, a habit she hadn't practiced since her college days in a difficult neighborhood. Hours passed and Lee's phone stayed silent. She attempted to occupy herself with a book, but the words blurred together. She turned on the television and switched to a local news channel, almost expecting to see a breaking story about a dramatic arrest at Il Giardino. However, the news was mundane, traffic reports and a story about a new art gallery opening downtown. The waiting was excruciating, with each minute stretching into forever. Finally, her phone vibrated, shocking her. It was a text from an unknown number saying, "You shouldn't have done that." Lee's blood went cold. She stared at the message, her heart racing. It had to be Luna. How did she get this number? Lee had taken precautions, using a burner app to call the police, but Luna was resourceful. She'd always been. Lee's immediate instinct was to contact the cops again, but she restrained herself. What might she say? That Luna had sent her an ambiguous, menacing text? It wasn't enough to justify rapid action, and she didn't want to appear paranoid. Instead, she emailed the text to the investigator who had collected her statement, emphasizing her worries. She shut off her phone, unable to face the notion of receiving another message. Sleeping was impossible that night. Lee laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, revisiting every memory of her friendship with Luna. She remembered their first meeting, at a fashion show to which Lee had been invited as a +1. Luna had a fascinating personality, dazzling everyone with her quick wit and exuberant energy. Lee was immediately drawn to her, happy for a buddy who seemed to understand the stresses of her demanding job. But now those recollections seemed like a ruse, a skillfully built illusion that Luna had used to her advantage. The next morning, Lee awoke to a knock on her door. Her heart jumped into her throat as she approached, staring through the peephole. It was Detective Ramirez, the officer she had spoken with last night. She opened the door with clammy hands. "Dr. Finnegan," the detective remarked, his tone professional yet kind. "I wanted to give you an update in person. We caught Luna Nozawa at Il Giardino last night." Lee's knees felt weak from relief. "You got her?" The detective nodded. "Based on your tip, we conducted a search and discovered sufficient evidence to arrest her. The package you stated contained a restricted narcotic, and we are currently investigating her financial records. It's early, but this could be the catalyst we need to crack a larger operation." Lee sighed, the weight of her decision shifting slightly. "Thank you," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "What happens now?" "We'll need you to come down to the station to give a formal statement," Ramirez told the crowd. "And we'll probably need your assistance as the investigation progresses." "You did the correct thing, Dr. Finnegan. This was not easy, I am sure." Lee nodded, but the words seemed hollow. She had done the correct thing, but it did not seem like a victory. As the detective departed, she shut the door and leaned against it, her emotions jumbled. Regret lingered, not for phoning the cops, but for the years she had spent believing in someone who did not exist. Luna, the friend she had adored, had vanished, replaced by a stranger who had played her for a fool. In the days that followed, Lee attempted to put her life back together. The news of Luna's arrest went fast through their social circle, and Lee found herself answering queries from mutual friends. Some were surprised, some doubtful, but everyone was intrigued. Lee's comments were imprecise, as she did not want to go over the facts again. She immersed herself in her work, working long hours at the hospital, where the turmoil of the ER provided a welcome escape. But the SMS from an unknown number tormented her. The police had tracked it down to a burner phone that had most likely been discarded, but it served as a reminder that Luna's influence went beyond her imprisonment. Lee changed her locks, installed a security system, and began to monitor her surroundings more closely. She despised living in dread, but she couldn't ignore the notion that Luna's narrative hadn't ended. Several weeks later, Lee received a call from Detective Ramirez. "They have discovered additional evidence linking Luna to a network of traffickers operating out of Los Angeles." The case was larger than anyone had imagined, and Lee's tip was the spark for its breakdown. The detective praised her again, but Lee didn't feel proud. She'd lost a friend, a sense of security, and a piece of herself in the process. As she stood on her balcony one evening, looking out at the city lights, Lee wondered if she'd ever feel whole again. The remorse lingered, a faint anguish that surfaced in moments of silence. But she had made her decision and would live with it. Luna had vanished, put away where she couldn't harm anybody else. For better or worse, Lee had done what she needed to do.